Have you ever felt drawn to someone who was completely outside your carefully planned life? Someone who defied all logic, yet somehow consumed your every thought? My name is Lucas. I'm 17 years old, and that's exactly the kind of attraction that changed everything for me. And the worst part is that this person wasn't just someone from school. He was the captain of the basketball team. He was the guy everyone admired. He was someone who, theoretically, should have been just another teammate. But life has a strange way of turning what should be simple into something completely impossible to ignore. It all started with a favor that I never imagined would completely change the way I saw him, the way I saw myself, and especially how I dealt with feelings I didn't even know I could have. It was after practice on a Thursday. I was putting away the balls on the court when he approached me. Daniel had just finished a conversation with the coach, and his posture was exactly the one that made everyone at school turn around when he walked by. There was a natural confidence, an energy that simply radiated authority without him needing to say a word. "Lucas, can I talk to you for a second?" His voice was calm, but there was something different in it, something that wasn't the usual confident tone. It was almost vulnerable. I dropped the ball bag and turned to him. "Sure, Captain. What's up?" He looked around, as if checking whether anyone could hear us. Most of the guys had already left, and the few who were still around were too busy with their own business. "Look, this is kind of weird to ask, but..." He ran his hand through his sweat-dampened hair. "I need help with chemistry classes. I'm screwed this semester, and if I don't raise my grade, I'm out of the regional championship." Chemistry, of course. I was the nerd of the team, the guy who could balance game statistics and chemical formulas without having a breakdown. It made sense for him to come to me. It was logical. It was rational. But something in the way he looked at me in that moment made my stomach flutter with an inexplicable, irrational excitement. "Sure, I can help," I responded quickly, trying to seem casual. "When do you want to start?" "How about tomorrow? After practice?" He smiled. And it was a different smile from the one he used on the court. It wasn't the confident smile of the captain who had just made a three-pointer. It was genuine, almost shy. "Okay, we'll meet at the library." "Actually," he hesitated. "It would be better at my place. My parents travel a lot, so it's quieter. No distractions, you know?" And that's when something changed. In that exact moment, when he said, "my place," something inside me realized that this wouldn't just be about chemistry. I can't explain it. It wasn't anything he had said or done. It was just a strange feeling, almost like a premonition that I was agreeing to something much bigger than just helping with tests and formulas. "All right," I agreed. "Send me the address." That night, lying in my bed, I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation. Why was I so nervous? It was just tutoring. I had helped other classmates before, but I had never lost sleep over it. Daniel, the captain, the guy the whole school admired, the guy who had a senior girlfriend, the guy who, theoretically, should have been just my teammate. But there was something about him I couldn't ignore. The way he moved on the court, with that natural confidence. The way he led the team without needing to shout or impose himself. The way, sometimes during practice, I'd catch him looking at me in a way I didn't know how to interpret. Or maybe I was just imagining things. Perhaps it was nothing more than my mind spinning wild, impossible fantasies about someone who could never see me as anything more than a teammate. On Friday, practice seemed to last forever. Every time Daniel passed near me, my heart raced ridiculously. I tried to focus on the drills, the exercises, the plays, but my mind insisted on going back to what would happen later. To his house, to being alone together. When practice finally ended, Daniel came up to me in the locker room. "Still on for the tutoring, right?" "Of course. I'll just shower and we'll go." The drive to his house was eerily silent. Not quite uncomfortable, but charged with an unspoken tension. It felt like we were both wrestling with thoughts we dared not voice. The house was big, modern, the kind you see in decorating magazines. He took me straight to his room, where he had already set out the chemistry materials on the desk. "Make yourself comfortable," he said, taking off his backpack and throwing it on the floor. "Want anything? Water? Soda?" "Water's fine." He left, and I took the opportunity to look around. The room was organized, but not obsessively. There were NBA team posters on the wall, a shelf full of trophies and medals, and a king-size bed that took up most of the space. On the nightstand, a photo of him with his family. Everyone smiling, everyone looking perfect. When he came back with 2 bottles of water, he sat next to me, close, very close, our shoulders almost touching. "Thanks for this, Lucas, really. I know you have your own stuff to do. Relax, it's no problem." We started studying, or at least that was the initial plan. I carefully explained the concepts, guiding him through each problem, and he absorbed every word with an intensity I'd never witnessed before. Yet beneath the academic veneer, I could feel something else. His gaze drifting, not tracing the formulas on the page, but studying me with an electric, unspoken attention. 2 hours went by. Chemistry was getting easier for him, but the atmosphere between us was becoming increasingly dense. It was as if there was something in the air that neither of us wanted to acknowledge, but that we also couldn't ignore. "Man, you're good at this," he said, closing the notebook. "I should have asked for your help sooner. You just had to ask." He laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. "Yeah, I guess I'm a bit too proud sometimes. I don't like asking for help." "Why not?" The question came out before I could think it through. It was too personal, invasive, but he didn't seem to mind. "Because—" He paused, vulnerability flickering behind his typically confident exterior. "Everyone expects me to be the guy with all the answers, the captain, the leader. If I show even a hint of uncertainty, it feels like I'm letting down everyone who depends on me." There was such raw honesty in those words that it caught me completely off guard. This wasn't the confident Daniel from the court. This was someone hiding an invisible weight that no one else could see. "You don't have to be perfect all the time," I said quietly. "Nobody is." He looked at me. Really looked, and for the first time, I saw something in the depths of those brown eyes that made me feel like the ground had disappeared from under my feet. "You don't judge me. You don't expect me to be some perfect version of myself. You're different, Lucas." His voice was low, almost a whisper. "You don't judge me. You don't expect me to be some perfect version of myself." My heart was beating so hard I was sure he could hear it. "I see you as you are," I replied, not knowing where those words had come from. The silence that followed was charged, heavy, full of unspoken things. And then he leaned a little closer. Just a little. Enough for the space between us to seem to suffocate everything around us. "Can I ask you something?" His voice dropped to a hushed, almost trembling whisper. "Sure. Have you ever felt something for someone you knew you shouldn't feel?" The question hit me like a punch to the stomach. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because I knew exactly what he was asking. And I knew that somehow it wasn't just about him. It was about both of us. "Yes." My voice came out shaky. "I have." He nodded slowly, as if processing my answer, as if deciding whether he should take the next step or pull back. "And what did you do?" I stopped, because the truth was I'd never done anything. I'd always been too scared, always thought I'd be rejected, always thought I wasn't good enough. I never had the courage to do anything, I finally admitted. He smiled, but it was a sad smile. "Me neither." And it was in that moment that I realized, this wasn't just about him needing help with chemistry. This was never just about that. There was something between us, something neither of us could name, but that we both felt. Something dangerous, something forbidden, something that made my whole body tremble just thinking about the possibility. Before I could say anything, he stood up. "It's getting late. I'll take you back." The ride back was even quieter than the way there, but it was a different kind of silence. It wasn't uncomfortable. It was as if we were both trying to process what had just happened, or what had almost happened. When he dropped me off at home, he looked at me for a second before speaking. "Thanks, Lucas, for everything." "No problem. Anytime, just call." He smiled, that genuine smile again. And then, before leaving, he said something that kept echoing in my head for the rest of the night. "You're special, you know? Don't forget that." Over the weekend, I couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The way he had looked at me, the questions he had asked, the closeness we felt. Was I conjuring something from nothing? Was this merely kindness? Or did the electricity between us signify something deeper, something profound and potentially life-changing? Monday arrived, and with it another practice. I was nervous, anxious. I didn't know what it would be like to see him again after that night, after that moment. But when I got to the locker room, Daniel was there, and when our eyes met, he smiled. It wasn't the confident captain's smile. It was the genuine smile, the same one he'd given me at his place. Practice was normal, or at least I tried to make it seem normal. But every time we had to do a partner exercise, he chose me. Every time the coach told us to split into teams, I ended up on his. And every time our bodies touched during plays, something inside me ignited in a way I couldn't control. After practice, when everyone was already leaving, he came up to me again. "Same time this week? To study?" "Sure." "Great." He hesitated, as if he wanted to say something more but couldn't find the words. Then he just patted my shoulder and left. And it was in that simple gesture, in that casual touch, that I realized something that terrified me. I wasn't just helping the team captain with chemistry. I was falling in love with him. And from the way he was acting, the way he looked at me when he thought no one was watching, I had this feeling that maybe, just maybe, he was feeling the same thing. But how could this work? How could two guys, in a school where anything outside the norm was grounds for jokes and judgment, even admit what they were feeling? The week passed in a hazy, dreamlike state. Classes dissolved into white noise. Practice became the exquisite form of torment. Because every time I saw Daniel, my heart performed symphonies I never knew existed. And then Thursday came around again, the day of our second tutoring session. The favor that started as a simple obligation was turning into something I couldn't explain. And in the locker room, after practice, when everyone had already left, I realized this wasn't about helping the team captain anymore. This was about something neither of us could admit out loud. I couldn't comprehend the magnitude of what had just transpired. There, in that empty locker room, isolated from the world's prying eyes, we had shared a kiss. And it wasn't merely a kiss. It was profound calm, yet electric. Raw yet tender. Brimming with an emotion I couldn't yet articulate. He pulled back slowly, his eyes still on mine, as if he wanted to make sure that had been real. And it was. Every second was real. "We need to talk about this," he said. But his voice didn't have fear. It had exhaustion. Like he already knew that conversation was going to change everything. I could only nod. Because what was I going to say? That I had thought about that moment 1,000 times? That every practice, every look from afar, every time he shouted commands on the court, I felt something I shouldn't feel? "Come," he asked, taking my hand and pulling me to the bench in the corner of the locker room. We sat there side by side, and the silence between us wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of everything we still didn't have the courage to say out loud. He took a deep breath. "You know I can't do this, right? Not publicly, not now." And there it was, reality. The perfect captain, the leader everyone admired, the guy who had his whole life planned out. He couldn't be seen with me, not like that. "I understand," I replied, and I really did. But it hurt. It hurt because part of me wanted to shout to the whole world that this incredible guy had kissed me, that he had chosen me. He turned his face to me, and for the first time I saw something different in his eyes. It wasn't that unshakable confidence anymore. It was vulnerability. It was fear. "You don't understand everything," he whispered. "You don't know the weight I carry every day." And that's where the facade really started to crack. He told me about the pressure, about how his family expected him to be perfect, about how the whole team placed impossible expectations on him, about how he himself had built this image of being invincible, and now he was trapped inside it. "Some mornings, I wake up completely lost, disconnected from my own identity," he confessed, his voice cracking. "I'm the captain, the model son, the straight A student. But who am I beneath these labels? Just a person yearning to break free from these suffocating expectations?" I held his hand tighter, because in that moment, I realized he wasn't just the unattainable guy I admired from afar. He was human. He suffered. He was afraid. "I'm not here for the captain. I'm here for you. For the guy who smiles when he makes a basket. For the guy who sings quietly in the locker room when he thinks no one's listening. For that person." His eyes welled up, not with sadness, with relief. "It's been so long since someone looked at me like that," he murmured. "Like I was just me." And there, on that cold locker room bench, something happened that I'll never forget. He rested his head on my shoulder and just breathed. Like, for the first time in a long time, he could let his guard down. We stayed like that for a few minutes, not saying anything, just existing together in that space that was only ours, until he lifted his head and looked at me with an intensity that made me forget to breathe. "I need to tell you something," he began, and I felt my heart race, something I've never told anyone. I waited, because I realized this was important, that he was about to show me a part of himself that no one else knew. "When I was 15, I fell in love with my best friend," he said, his voice low but steady, "and I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't even know what it meant. I just knew it was wrong, that I couldn't feel that." He paused, his eyes fixed on his own hands. "I never revealed my true feelings. I bottled everything up inside, letting the pain consume me until the pressure became unbearable. I sacrificed my closest friendship because I was terrified of confronting my own identity." My chest tightened, because I understood that pain, that feeling of carrying a secret so heavy it consumes you from the inside. "Since then, I built this version of myself that was safe," he continued. "The captain, the focused guy, the one who never gets distracted, never gets involved, never feels too much. Because if I let it in, I'd have to admit who I really am." He finally looked at me, and then you showed up. The way he said it, like I had turned his world upside down, like I had forced him to face everything he had spent years trying to hide. "I tried to ignore you," he admitted, a melancholic smile playing across his face. "I tried to pretend that look of yours didn't affect me, that when you smiled from across the court, my heart wouldn't skip a beat, that when we bumped into each other in the hallway, I could somehow deny that electric connection." He shook his head, as if he couldn't believe his own words. "But I can't pretend anymore. Not with you. Not after today." I was speechless, because everything I had felt, everything I had imagined, he had felt too. The connection was real. What we had wasn't just in my head. "I'm not saying you feel this too," he said quickly. But if you do, I just want you to know there's nothing wrong with it, and that I understand. I smiled, because it was exactly what I needed to hear. I do feel it, I replied. I've felt it since the first day I saw you, and I spent all this time thinking it was impossible, that you would never look at me that way. He laughed softly, a sound full of emotion. I always looked at you that way. You just didn't notice. And it was at that moment that we kissed again. But this time it was different. There was more urgency, more truth, more of everything. When we pulled apart, I knew something fundamental had changed between us. It wasn't just attraction anymore. It was connection. It was understanding each other's pain. It was seeing beyond the surface. I don't know how we're going to make this work, he admitted, his forehead pressed against mine. But I want to try. For the first time in my life, I want to stop running. My heart was so full I thought it would burst. We'll figure it out together, I said, because that was all I could promise. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. He nodded, his fingers intertwined with mine. Just the two of us for now, he whispered, until I figure out how to be honest with the rest of the world. Can you wait? And I knew it was going to be difficult. I knew we would have to hide, that we would have to pretend in public, that every stolen glance, every disguised touch, every hidden moment would be all we'd have for a while. But looking at him, seeing that vulnerability in his eyes, seeing the real person behind the perfect captain, I knew it was worth it. I'll wait, I promised. It was the following week when everything fell apart. I was at Daniel's house when my dad showed up unannounced. He had come to pick up some documents he had forgotten. We weren't doing anything much, just talking. But the way he looked at me and then at Daniel, I knew he had figured it out. Let's go home, he said, with that voice that doesn't accept questioning. The silence in the car was unbearable. When we arrived, my mom was already waiting. My dad had called her. Sit down, my mom said, pointing to the couch. I sat. My heart was beating so hard I thought they could hear it. What's going on between you and Daniel? My dad asked directly. I took a deep breath. Have you ever had to choose between lying to protect everyone or telling the truth and risking losing everything? I like him, I said, my voice shaking. I really like him. It wasn't planned. It wasn't wrong. It just happened. My mom closed her eyes. My dad crossed his arms. Are you sure about what you're saying? My mom asked, her voice breaking. Do you understand what this means? It's not a phase, Mom. It's a feeling that was born. And I tried to ignore it. I swear I tried. But I can't pretend anymore. The silence returned. This time, heavier. And Daniel, does he feel the same? My dad asked. He does. He sighed. This is going to complicate everything. What people will think, the team. I know, I said, feeling the tears burning. But I can't live lying about who I am. I can't pretend I don't feel this. My mom got up and went to the bedroom. My dad stayed there, looking at me as if he was trying to understand. Are you sure about what you're doing? He asked. I am. He shook his head. Then you're going to have to deal with the consequences. And so will Daniel. In the following days, the tension at home was almost unbearable. My mom barely spoke to me. My dad tried to mediate, but I could see he was lost too. And Daniel? Daniel was going through the same thing. He called me one night, crying. My parents found out. They're furious. They said I'm throwing my life away, that this is just teenage confusion. Daniel, we didn't do anything wrong. I know, but it hurts so much to hear that from them. They're my family. And what do we do now? A weighted silence hung between us. I don't know, he whispered, his voice raw with vulnerability. But I know one thing for certain. I'm not letting you go. Those words gave me the courage I needed. 2 days later, I asked my mom to sit with me. Just the two of us. Mom, I need you to really listen to me. Not as someone who did something wrong, but as your son. She didn't respond, but she sat down. I spent my whole life trying to be what you expected of me. The good student, the dedicated athlete, the son who never disappoints. And that's what made me so afraid to admit who I really am. It's not just attraction, Mom. It's a profound connection. It's finding someone who sees me, truly sees me in a way I've never been seen before. And I know this is hard for you, but I'm asking you to try to understand. She was silent for what felt like forever. I don't know if I can, she finally said. It's too difficult to accept this. I know, but I'm suffering too. And so is Daniel. We didn't choose this, Mom. But now that it's happened, we need to decide what to do. And what do you want to do? Try, really try. But only if you can accept me as I am. She took a deep breath. I need time. That's okay. I'll wait. The following weeks were about rebuilding. My mom started reading about the subject, talking to people who had gone through similar situations. It wasn't easy, but it was real. And gradually the tension began to ease. A month later, on a Sunday morning, my mom called me into the kitchen. Daniel can come over for lunch today, she said, without looking me in the eyes. My heart raced. Really? Really? But it's not just for the food. We need to talk, the three of us. When Daniel arrived, the atmosphere was tense, but different. There was something hopeful in the air. We sat at the table. My mom served lunch in silence. Then she took a deep breath and began to speak. I've spent all this time trying to understand. And the truth is, it's still difficult for me. But I realized something. You two are happier than I've seen you in a very long time. And if there's one thing I've learned in life, it's that true happiness isn't something we should waste. Daniel and I looked at each other, unable to believe what we were hearing. I'm not saying it's easy, my mom continued, but I'd rather have you both in my life, even if it's this way, than lose my son to pride or prejudice. Tears streamed down my face. Daniel was crying too. Thank you, was all I could say. My mom nodded. Just promise me one thing. Take care of each other. Really take care. We promise, Daniel said, holding my hand under the table. That day, something changed. It wasn't immediate and complete acceptance, but it was a beginning. And sometimes a beginning is all we need. Today, 2 years later, Daniel and I are still together. The relationship with my family became stronger than ever. They understood that love doesn't follow scripts, doesn't obey social rules. Love simply is. And you know what's most amazing? My mom became one of our biggest supporters. She learned, she grew, and today she's an ally I never imagined I'd have. Of course, there are still people who don't understand. There are still strange looks, mean comments. But we learned that other people's opinions matter much less than our inner peace. You don't have to decide anything right now. Just don't lie to yourself. If you're feeling something that seems wrong, but deep in your chest feels right, maybe it's time to listen more to your heart and less to the external voice trying to tell you how you should live. Love isn't a betrayal. It's a new feeling that was born. And if this story resonated with you in any way, if you've been through something similar, or if you simply believe that everyone deserves to love and be loved without judgment, leave a like on this video. Your like helps me continue bringing real and vulnerable stories to you. Because at the end of the day, we're all together on this journey of discovering who we really are. The more we share, the more we realize we're not alone. Subscribe to the channel for more stories that touch the heart. And I'll see you in the next video. Sending love to my family. Let me know in the comments. Have you ever felt something for someone that everyone thought was impossible? Have you ever had to choose between being authentic and pleasing others? I genuinely want to hear your story.